Second reading is from Hebrews chapter 12. You have not come to something that can be touched, a blazing fire, the darkness and gloom and a tempest, and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them, for they could not endure the order that was given. If even an animal touches the mountain, it shall be stoned to death. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See that you do not refuse the one who was speaking. For if they did not escape when they refused the one who warned them on earth, how much less will we escape if we reject the one who warns from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth but also the heaven. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of what is shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us give thanks, by which we offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For indeed our God is a consuming fire. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." And when he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to give it water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan had bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When Jesus said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things that he was doing. This is the gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Invite any children to come forward if they would like this word. I think this is not working, correct? Correct. This one is. One Sabbath day, as Jesus was teaching in the synagogue, a woman was there who was severely disabled. Her body was all bent over, so bent that her head was nearly even with her waist. Dr. Luke in his gospel tells us she could not straighten up at all. That strikes me perhaps you, as an unbelievably sad situation. Forgetting the pain and the inconvenience of not being able to straighten one's body. Imagine what it would do to your self-image. Imagine not just the physical pain, but the emotional pain of this kind of obvious deformity of the entire body. Dr. Ralph Wilson suggests that this woman's problem was probably what physicians today call ankylosing spondylitis, or Marie Strumpel disease, a disease that causes bones in the spine to fuse together. It's a disease that usually affects young men, though women are susceptible too. It begins with inflammation and stiffness in the spine. Early in the course of the disease, Dr. Wilson says, sufferers often find that the pain is relieved somewhat if they lean forward. And so they often go through the day leaning slightly forward, and gradually their spine begins to fuse bone to bone. The more they lean in order to relieve the pain, the greater the angle, until a patient might be bent almost double, as was the lady in our gospel story. Treatment focuses on relieving back and joint pain and preventing or correcting spinal deformities. Even today, though, we do not have medicines that can actually cure this condition. If you have any compassion at all or any ability to empathize with another human being, you cannot help but hurt for this woman in the story. She was so terribly disabled. But you also have to admire her. She did not allow her physical condition to keep her from worshiping God. Notice how our story begins. One Sabbath day, Jesus was teaching in a synagogue. A woman was there who was severely disabled. Her body was all bent over. Even with her pronounced disability and deformity, she was in the synagogue on the Sabbath. I admire her for that. I wonder if I would have had that kind of courage to be in public with that kind of condition. Even more importantly, she had not allowed her physical condition to impair her relationship with the Almighty. She had been this way for 18 years, all bent over and unable to rise. The pain, probably sometimes very severe, and yet her habit was to worship and praise her Maker. Friends, that's faith. That's devotion. I know people who will miss worship if they have a slight headache, or if there's a little threat of rain, or if there's a threat of sunshine, for that matter. There's so many good things you can do when the sun is shining. But here was this woman, where she was supposed to be on this particular Sabbath, worshiping God. And because she was there, she received God's very special blessing. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir today. You're all here in worship. You believe in worship, or you would not be here today. And nobody forced you to come. Well, maybe your folks, or maybe a spouse. However, I'm glad we don't live in earlier times when missing worship was a punishable offense. You may be familiar with Jamestown, Virginia, the first permanent settlement in North America in the 1500s. Some of their 1600s. Some of their religious practices were very interesting. They had 2-hour church services every day and a 5-hour worship service each Sunday. And everybody was required to attend.